Okay, so we have an official debate happening. We have Zemunac here, we have Deonteleologist. Zemunac is taking the position that male circumcision should almost be mandatory for the lower class. Deonteleologist is taking the opposition. As always, one will be based upon who concedes. If there's no concession is made, then we'll put it to a voting poll in which you, the audience, can vote on who you think performed better in the debate. You guys will have no time limit for this debate, and you may get started.
All right. So when I say it should almost be mandatory, there's some certain exceptions in my proposition, basically. And these exceptions would be like giving circumcision to like a person that is pretty old, for instance. Because at that point there's like almost no basically the benefit to risk ratio is pretty low at that point. So, but yeah, I posted you, I gave you a study where they look at the basically benefit and risks associated with getting a male circumcision. And what they found out is that there's a benefit to risk ratio on 1 to 200, basically, which is almost the same as initial vaccinations, which is like 1 to 300. Yeah. So, do you have any backlash or objections? Yeah.
Yeah, first I just want to get clear on exactly what kind of exceptions you have in mind. So you said old people. Do you have like a specific age range in mind?
I think it would probably be over like 60 and above.
People who are 60 and older
or like 50,
do not
yeah.
need it.
Yeah,
Okay.
50.
And
50.
and the debate proposition mentions the lower class. Could you talk about why this is relevant to the lower class?
The reason why it's relevant to the low class is because the basically the benefit that MC gets are risks that are associated with the mostly lower class getting. So the risks are like STIs, basically. Yeah, but STIs, UTC is like let me see. Okay, so UTCs are like urinary tract infections, and they are more related to lower classes, getting them higher, and stuff like STIs, basically, like what do you call it?
Yes, STIs, sexually transmitted infections.
Yeah, exactly. And then we also have like cancers, which are like penile cancer, and yeah, there's like a bunch of things that are mentioned in the study. There are like there's also some diseases like genital ulcer disease, and like I don't know. Yeah, there's basically a lot of the diseases that are related to or like the benefits that you get are mostly related to the lower class having those higher, if you get what I mean.
Okay, sure. Now, when you say the lower class, do you mean this? Would you think this is applicable to every society?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, every society. In every society, it's true that the lower class should have mandatory male circumcision prior to the age of 50 or 60 or something like that.
I mean, lower class. Like if you define as lower class, like I guess like if you, I would probably change it to like people that are just basically poor instead.
Well, I mean, that's what I think when I hear the lower class. But
Oh,
I
okay,
mean,
okay.
are you
Gotcha.
suggesting that it's different in the sense that lower class is relative in such a way that, you know, it's relative to the specific society? Because I could see a reason for switching it to poor if you mean that there are some countries, say, where the country as a whole is so poor that not just the lower class in that society should do it, but that all of the members except, say, a few really rich people should do it because they're all poor.
Yeah, I wouldn't say. Yeah, I wouldn't say like. You know, the reason why I mean the reason why I would basically say that it's mostly the poor people, that's all a low class, or like I mentioned low class, is because like it's usually African Americans and like what do you call it, the Latinos, or like yeah, that are at these groups, and they're also correlated to having these kind of diseases more often. If you
Okay,
get what I mean.
so yeah, okay, so I think I'm clear on what the proposition is. Now I'd just like to know what the justification is for making this a requirement. I assume this would be a legal requirement, like sort of that you can coercively enforce, and that you could
The reason,
actually.
yeah, the reason why is that there's more benefit than harm in it, and it's more cost effective for the lower class to perform these actions, basically,
Okay, but I
in
mean,
terms of their medical or like their wealth, basically. Yeah, because like
so,
if you get the I actually have the study right here. It shows that it's 100% cost effective to do it as
100%.
yeah, 100% cost effective for like for African American, and I think it was 83% for Latinos. But
Okay,
for ordinary whites, it's I think it's 3%. So
ordinary whites. Okay, that's an interesting
yeah,
phrase. I would just I
I
would
mean that's what they mentioned.
okay, so question, you know, is it generally a good justification um
I think
for legalizing a certain norm if it creates more overall utility and is cost effective, right? Like it might be that
it's
you know,
more
having
beneficial
slaves,
and it's more cost effective.
having a small population of slaves in a society might be more cost effective and
No,
create
because
more overall utility.
No, because the thing is that it's almost I view this exactly the same as if we take the action that is 200 to 1 more beneficial to risk ratio, and that it has
Okay.
and it's more cost effective uh, for the lower class to perform these or like these medical procedures, then it's almost the same as like debate. I would say it's almost the same as debating whether or not you would agree on vaccination or not, because that's
Okay.
almost the same thing, which would be, I would say, it would be a bit ridiculous.
Okay, fair. So if it's, you know, not, it's not always the case that instituting a legal policy that is that will create more utility and is cost effective should be done. But if it's 200 to 1, then you're going to say that's justified, right? Like that's enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Fair enough. So
there's a certain point where the benefit to risk ratio is at a point where it should be mandatory, basically, to perform an action. I would say.
Okay.
And
So,
I don't know. I don't know exactly, but I would say 200 to 1 is definitely close to that part, or like at least that's what I would say. Because
that's fine.
Because
I'm not going to object to that.
No, because if you look, I looked at the vaccination benefit to risk ratio, and it's at 330 to 1 at the start of the vaccination, or like during the first 40 weeks, and then after it actually increases. So
okay, I'm not going to object to that. I'm going to move on with the argument. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so can we look at how exactly the author of the study you sent me, how they calculate that 200 to 1 ratio?
They do it through systemic review on different meta-analysis, RTCs, and RTCs is randomized control trials on the different studies. And I mean, they mention, there's almost 160 references in that systemic review. So like, I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, you did read the study, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
they
I
post.
just want to know how you think they got the number 200 to 1.
Oh, it's in the study.
So, I mean, I see that it's in the study. They have this table where they say risk benefit analysis for newborn male circumcision. And I'll just read it here. This is what they say. They say, over the lifetime, the risk to an uncircumcised male of developing a foreskin-related condition requiring medical attention may be up to 80%. May be up to 80%. In comparison, the procedural risk during infant male circumcision of experiencing an easily treatable condition is approximately 1 in 250. The risk of a moderate or serious complication is approximately 1 in 3,000. Thus,
Okay.
the benefit to risk is 1 to 200.
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't that mean that there's a risk to benefit analysis 1 to 200 on circumcised to being uncircumcised?
So if you were going to do a really adequate risk benefit analysis, I think you would have to assign certain positive and negative values to certain outcomes, correct?
But they no, but they post how many studies? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like over 30 or like 35 studies, and most of the studies are meta-analysis or randomized control trials on them, where they also give a rating score on like how well the studies were conducted, and yeah.
So
And
we can
they
talk
also
about
mention
the
how much.
quality of we can talk about the quality of the data. I mean, that's a point I do want to criticize the paper on. But first, I'm just asking you. I'll ask you this:
What are
if
you
you're
asking?
going to calculate a risk to benefit ratio, do
Mm-hmm.
you need to assign certain values to certain outcomes? Right? If we're going to do an expected utility calculus, then you're going to need to know probabilities, and you're going to need to assign values.
But that's a specific formula to know the benefit to risk ratio. Like didn't you know that? Like,
Well,
you have to
I
have
assume that they're
you have
using expected utility calculus, right?
expected. So I don't know what that is, but yeah, they're using some kind of calculus.
Right. So if you
come
want
to
to
that
say, look, this is the expected value of this outcome. Sorry, this is the expected value of male circumcision, right? And what you would do is you would calculate the probabilities of all of the outcomes and assign each outcome a certain positive or negative value. And then you'd add up all of those, and presumably if you got 200 to 1,
But didn't they do that in the?
They don't do any. They don't show me where they assign the values to any of the possible outcomes.
They don't have to. They don't have to show you how they got to the. I mean, I guess
if they don't show me how they got to 200 to 1, then why should I believe it?
Well, I guess like because they're an authority. I don't know. Like they obviously.
So if you'll admit that it's because they're an authority, that's fine. Like just admit it. Like if that's the reason.
No. I'm pretty sure they didn't just like came up randomly with that number. You know, they obviously got it somewhere. So.
Well,
to say that
question.
To say that the benefit to risk calculation that they did is, I mean, is flawed. Then like show me that it's flawed. How is it flawed?
Well, I'm not saying necessarily that it's flawed, but I want to ask how they can do that, right? How can they come up with the expected value on purely scientific terms, right? Because they need to assign certain values to certain.
They look at the decreased risks, right? And they look at the risks that are associated with having not having male circumcision, and then they do like how much did it decrease overall in the what called, how much did the diseases or like the risks basically decrease in the male circumcision, and then they basically subtract, like they do a certain calculation on it, and then they come to that conclusion.
Yes. Okay. So 1 sec. Let me just here in the debate chat. I'm going to mention you because Cool Dog just gave the formula for an expected utility calculus, and I'm going to see whether you think that this would be what they're working with, because I think this has to be what they're working with. I don't know what else they're doing.
Oh.
So it's the probability of event 1 times the value of that event plus the probability of event 2. In this case, it would be the events would be the outcomes of male circumcision.
Yeah. I mean, you can, if you have a problem with like, I guess like if you have a problem with how they came to the conclusion, you could probably message them and see how they got it. But I'm pretty sure they got it through calculus. So
I mean, would you just look at the formula, because I just don't know how else they could do it. I'm not saying this is invalid. I'm just saying, would you grant?
I can show you how they, like you can there's another formula for it, but I think it's almost the same.
Okay. Anyways,
let me wait 2 seconds. Let me find it, because I saw it in the vaccine thing on how they measured the risk to benefit ratio, or like how they
in a
got
different paper, or is this the same paper?
It's a different paper, but I'll just show you like how they got the number from that, like the benefit to risk, like number.
The point that I'm trying to push here is that they're going to have to assign a value to each outcome that they're testing.
So this is I posted in debate chat.
This doesn't help me at all unless you can tell me what each of these variables means.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can't, but that's another function for like calculating the initial, what was it? Initial
okay. Well, I mean,
net benefits. Or
So would you
incremental
either way, like if you don't know how this works, then let me just ask you personally, since you're making the argument that we should do this and that it maximizes utility to a very high degree, right?
Well,
When you're
I mean, I posted the calculation right there, and you can check if that's wrong or
but
not.
you can't even tell me what it means. You understand why I shouldn't just take
mean-
this that you sent this screenshot and take it as, oh well, actually, you're right. I
I
definitely
mean,
can't question this.
in the vaccine study, they actually go through like what the different symbols mean.
Right, and
So
in Mein Kampf, Hitler argues for his positions. He actually goes through and argues his positions.
okay, how is this related to
So, I mean, you
anything?
telling me that somebody goes in and gives justification that they think works doesn't mean that I should believe what they said. Anyways, let me just ask you a separate
No,
question.
but oh my God, they literally explain you the different symbols and the calculation in the study. So like if it's not like if they
Right, but
yeah, go ahead, yeah.
I'm sure that they explain it, right? But if you can't explain it to me here, then I don't know why I should rely on that for evaluating your argument, because you need to be able to argue for your claim. You can't just say, well, one premise of my argument is this thing that I take on the basis of authority that I don't actually really understand. Unless you want to admit that it's just an appeal to authority, you can do that, but I don't think it's
Mhm.
going to be a good move for you. So my question is just, because you're
I think
saying,
it's all right move to do for me. I mean,
okay, if you want to say that it's an all right,
I don't have to know how they calculate it precisely. They
okay,
just they
I
just
mean,
they just
we'll
have
come
to
back to
show
this.
they just have to like they show you like you haven't mentioned all the decrease in risks in male circumcision, right? So
No, we'll get there. I promise we'll get there. I'll talk about the evidence soon. I just want to
okay,
get the
and they
methodology
posted
straight
like
first.
how many meta analysis on different like diseases
I promise
versus
you, we will talk
non
all about the meta-analyses. I
and
promise you, we will talk all
not
about this.
only meta analyses, randomized control trials. Like
Yeah, we'll talk
there's like
about those too.
okay, yeah, sure, go ahead. I
Okay,
mean, objection like to performing male circumcision
just
to
wait.
the lower class.
I just need to get the methodology points out first, and then we can attack the substance of the evidence. Okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So when you're making a utilitarian argument and you're saying that the justification of this has to do with, circumcising all of the males will produce, vastly more utility than not doing it, right? And the positive consequences
Hmm.
will so far outweigh any negative consequences that there might be, right? You understand that when you're doing that, in order to make that kind of argument, you need to assign certain values to things like preventing UTIs, things like preventing HIV. You need
Hmm.
to do that, right?
That you have to look at these studies or like these different.
When you're making a utilitarian normative argument for
I don't
implementing a
even know
certain
what that means.
policy,
Utilitarian. Oh, like a benefit to risk, basically analysis, right?
yes, when you're doing
Okay.
that, you need to be able to assign certain values to the possible outcomes of the policy.
Um. Sure. Yeah. I
Right.
mean that. I think that's yeah. I mean that's possibly one of the ways. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, but you're going to need to do it unless you want to make something like a rights-based argument, but
No,
clearly you
no.
don't.
If there's like a decrease in percentage, then you can see like how much it decreases in these risks, right?
Yes, but if there's a decrease in percentage, that's only a good thing if what you're decreasing is a bad thing, and you need to assign a certain value to that bad thing to be able to compare it to other things.
Yeah, I got you.
Yes. Okay. So now,
But
can you tell me how?
but that's, I mean, okay, yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, what were you about to say?
Can you tell me how a scientist can assign those values in an objective, empirical, scientifically valid way?
Well, they measure in a scientific way. I mean, they look at the risks associated with getting the different diseases, right? So, like, for instance, I think they mentioned like penile cancer, right? That's one of the things that are associated with, like, at least getting or like it decreases if you get circumcised, basically.
Yes, I don't doubt that it decreases if you get circumcised.
Yeah, but like they measure like the what do you call it? Like how often you get it, or like how often the population gets it.
Right. And there's two things you're going to need to be able to do. You're going to need to be able to track the probability that male circumcision leads to a decrease in one of these negative things, but you're also going to need the value that you can assign to that negative thing. Because if, say it were the case that male circumcision leads to a 90% decrease in UTIs, but it
I
also
mean,
leads to.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I think you would say the same thing. Like, then you would also like say the same thing for like vaccines, for instance. How do they measure the risks, or like how do they put a value on the risk? That's what you're asking, like, also.
That's a good question. They're going to need to answer that question. Anyways, I think
but we know that the benefit of getting a vaccine is higher than the risks associated with it.
we only know that if we can be confident in the values and the percentages. And I'm not saying that we can't, but I'm saying that that's a necessary first step. Anyways, I think that we're probably not going to progress much further on this point. So let's go ahead and look at the data that you want to talk about.
Sure.
Okay. So let me pull up the study. There was.
But
There
I
were
feel like
several things.
that's a vague argument, because you can just say that to any kind of medical research, and that's honestly what you're doing right there. Basically you can say that to any kind of medical research where they associate the risk and benefit, and like go through the risk and benefit analysis on it.
Yeah, and that's
Is
a
it
pretty serious problem for that kind of medical
I mean,
research.
you could say it's a problem, but it's not really a problem. It's maybe a problem for you.
Okay.
But yeah, you were going through the meta-analysis and
Yeah.
randomized control trials.
So, there are a few things that stood out to me as particularly problematic. One of these was, it's on, I think, I don't know what page of the PDF it is. Let me find it.
Oh, you downloaded
It's when they talk.
the.
It's when they talk about. Yeah, I downloaded it. It's when they talk about okay. It's on, if for anyone who's, keeping up and has the PDF open, it's page 93, which is the fifth page of the PDF document. And it's under the heading the impact of condoms on STIs.
Impact of condoms.
You see it? You could do a Command F, might help you get there faster.
Is it
But
in your
anyways,
study? Oh no,
no, it's in the
there.
study
I
you
see
sent
it.
me.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
so
Yeah, I see it.
the second sentence goes, a Cochrane systematic review and meta-analysis of RCTs of condom use, 2 in the United States, 1 in England, and 4 in Africa, found, however, little clinical evidence of effectiveness and no favorable results for HIV prevention. This study did, however, find condoms exhibited 42% effectiveness against syphilis. So if you were like me and you read that, you probably thought, either everything I was taught about condoms was completely wrong, or the authors are seriously misrepresenting whatever data uh,
Well, I
they're
don't know.
citing here.
Do you think?
So what happens is I went
Do
to
you
the
think?
paper that they cited.
Wait a second. Do you think that RCT is not evidence?
No, I didn't say that. In fact, what I
That's what
said
you.
was,
That's what you're saying. You're saying these meta-analysis of RCCs, basically on HIV prevention for condoms, are not evidence-based.
no,
That's
you
what you
did not hear
literally.
what I said. You are literally lying right now, or you misheard me. What I said was either,
Okay,
right
what are you
after I
saying?
read this, either everything I had been taught before about condoms was wrong because they're claiming that a systematic review and meta-analysis of RCTs of condom use, 2 in the US, 1 in England, 4 in Africa, found little clinical evidence of effectiveness and no favorable results for HIV
Okay,
prevention.
I think we're going on a red herring right now
No,
because
not at all. This is not at all a red
it,
herring.
it's
Not
a
at
it's a
all.
clear. Right? What has condoms to do with male circumcisions? Please tell me that. Exactly. Okay, good. Let's go through
Are you
the.
kidding me? Are you kidding me? So
Yeah.
if it's true that condoms do nothing to prevent HIV, then that's an argument in favor of male circumcision, right? Because if you can't prevent it through condoms, then it seems like the only way you could prevent it without being abstinent, right, would be the only way you could prevent it through sexual transmission would be male circumcision, correct?
Well, I
So
think that if you
the way that they presented the evidence here.
wait a second, but wait a second. Listen. So if you are male circumcised and you have a condom, is your chances of getting these risks lower or higher than if you
Say it
weren't?
again.
If your chances like if you have a if you've been male circumcised, right, and you have a condom on during sexual intercourse, is your chances of getting these diseases lower or higher than a person that has a condom on but is not male circumcised?
What do you think?
I think it's clear that the person with that has gone through the process of getting a male circumcision has a lower chance of getting these diseases.
Okay, so I mean, that's fine. You can think that. I don't think that's
I mean, it's
true.
not. I mean, it's
Let me
not
tell you
opinion.
why.
It's based on these meta-analysis that are down in the table one. Look at the table one. Like
I don't mean to be rude, but you need to shut up and let me speak about the point that I was trying to make here, because you just claimed a red herring and you interrupted me before I got to the point, the reason I brought this up. Okay?
go ahead. Yeah.
They claim, let me just read the quote one more time. They claim a Cochrane systematic review and meta-analysis of RCTs of condom use found, however, little clinical evidence of effectiveness and no favorable results for HIV prevention. Okay. Now, that claim is entirely false. I went back and looked at the meta-analysis that they're citing. It was not a meta-analysis of condom use. It was a meta-analysis of various kinds of educational intervention programs intended to promote condom use. The researchers themselves, I have a quote here, they state the overall quality of evidence was moderate to low. Losses to follow-up were high. And they concluded effective interventions for improving condom use are needed to prevent pregnancy and HIV/STI transmission. Interventions should be feasible for resource-limited settings and tested using valid and reliable outcome measures.
What are you talking about? If you look at the reference, right, and go through the reference, right?
Yes, I read the whole paper.
Okay, did you read the author's conclusion? We found few studies and little clinical evidence of effectiveness for prevention promoting condom use for dual protection.
Right. So do you know what that means?
And then it says we did not find favorable results for pregnancy or HIV. Only found some for other STI.
So what do you think that means? Do you think that shows that condoms are ineffective? Is that what you think that means?
No, you put it worse in my mouth. It says that they found little evidence to support that condom use prevents.
You are quoting their citation, which I just showed you was a misrepresentation, a distortion of the original paper.
But this is the reference from the study. I mean, that's the study they used. I'm posting in the debate.
Literally read the first fucking sentence. There's little evidence of effectiveness for interventions promoting condom use. They didn't say there's little evidence of effectiveness for condom use.
Okay, yeah. What's the difference?
Now go back and read the way that the author of the meta-analysis, the huge, fantastic paper that you sent me, read how they characterize that paper. I'll do it for you. This is what they say. Cochrane's systematic review and meta-analysis of RCTs of condom use found little clinical evidence of effectiveness and no favorable results for HIV prevention.
Okay, I'm literally trying to see what you're going with this. Where are you going with this?
Where am I going with it? So first of all, this completely undermines my faith in any of the authors' representations of the studies that they're citing.
Okay, can you explain why?
Well, if they can't tell the difference between fucking condom use and, educational programs that say, hey, you should, wear a condom when you fuck your girlfriend, then why should I believe that they are charitably and accurately interpreting any of the rest of these arguments? Like this one simple paper that I happened to actually check up on was clearly saying something different from their representation of it.
I mean, you could look through the references and see.
Right. Now, if I had time, I would look through all 165 references. Okay. If I had time, I would do it.
Yeah, that's like, okay. I feel like that's like you're nitpicking or like cherry picking, right?
Oh, I'm cherry picking.
I mean, you are, because you find like one little minute mistake and then the whole thing breaks down. Apparently, the whole evidence base on like the meta-analysis that they mention in the table in table 1, then it's just like it's flawed, right?
So let me ask you just exactly what you mean here.
I just told you. I think this is a red herring, because what does condom use have to do with our discussion about male circumcision?
The way that they present the way that they present what I just showed you was clearly supposed to be a claim not necessarily a claim, what was clearly supposed to be was clearly supposed to lend support to the idea that male circumcision is an effective mode of treating or preventing HIV, but condom use is not.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you this: Is it true? Is it true that the table one that they mentioned with all these studies, is that false? All of these studies with the
No, not
decreases.
necessarily. No, not necessarily.
Okay, tell me which of the studies that are not true.
Okay,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
that is a very high standard, right? And I wouldn't ask you the opposite claim, which is
What do you mean?
tell me
Yeah,
tell me which one of these are true,
I
right?
mean,
If I gave
I
you the
gave you
same standard,
I gave you the study to look at, right? But you couldn't look through all the different references to see if they are
oh, did you
actually
look
true
through
or
all the
not.
references? Did you look through all the references?
No, I don't. I don't have to look through all the references. I base I base it on their authority that they probably
Right.
are
Okay,
true and
perfect.
the
This is
references are
exactly
true.
where okay, perfect. Perfect. This is exactly where I wanted to go. Right? So you're saying, look, the reason, right?
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, to be clear, generally this is a fair approach to take, right? Is like, look, I don't understand all of the statistical methods and all of the experimentation. I don't have time to go through every single citation. So I have to eventually just trust that some people are being intellectually
Okay. So
honest.
do you concede that it's probably true?
No, I said that
Okay.
generally. I
So
said
if you
generally. Wait,
if you don't concede on
will you
that,
let me
then
finish my
can you
point? Will you let me finish my point?
go ahead? Yeah.
Generally, this is, an okay approach to take, but you always have to be wary of the fact that figures of authority, even the most highly respected academics in certain fields, disagree with each other sometimes, right?
Right.
Okay. So what
Go
I
ahead.
did was I went to find another paper, and I sent this to you. I went to find another paper where people criticize this author's position and criticize some of the claims that the author makes. Okay. So can I go through that with you?
The critique. I mean, there will always be critiques on different things, but like
Right. And
if
so
their
we should
studies are
always
true,
check the critiques to see if they're,
the thing is,
convincing.
yeah, yeah. But the thing is, like, if there's the studies that they post are true, right? The studies that are in the table one are true, and you add and they get to a number that the benefit to risk ratio is 1 to 200, then I trust their authority that they made or like they came to a right conclusion, or like yeah, how you would say it, like I think that they came to a right conclusion based on the table one that they produced, and like the studies that they mentioned are like meta-analysis. We can go through all the meta-analysis to check and to see if they are true or not, you know, or like the RDCs and stuff like that.
Right. But I already showed you that whether the meta-analyses are true or rated very highly doesn't prevent them from being misinterpreted by the author.
I mean, if the conclusion and the meta-analysis are like this is the decreased risk in MC and in having males performing MC, then like how could that be anything wrong, or like how could there be any critique on that, or like
So let's just go to it so I can
go
cite
ahead.
the claims.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I'm going to pull up this one and put it in the Discord real quick, just so everyone has access to it. It's by Brian Earp and someone else. I forgot who the second author is on it, called Circumcision, and it has a long title actually, but Circumcision and Public Health, published in 2018. So let me pull up the relevant points. So there are several.
At critical assessment of recent evidence. Okay, sure.
Okay, so let's see. The contention of the CDC. Okay, so if you go to page 628 of the journal article, it's the fourth page of the PDF.
Are you talking about
right?
the benefit risks thing?
So it's the section, the contention of the CDC, right? So the CDC, right? It's interesting. Brian Morris is the lead author on the article that you sent me, the first thing we were looking at. And
Or
the CDC, so he actually, uses the CDC as, proof, the CDC and the AAP, I believe, as sort of,
okay.
these are the correct views. These are the scientifically most robust views, and we should be striving towards these kinds of views rather than the bad views that Australia has in the
I mean,
document that he
it's just a
cites.
critique on the CDC. It's not the critique on the study themselves, is it?
Well, he says, so Brian Arp says that the CDC working group cites an actual review article published by Brian Morris, the author of the article that you sent me originally. As noted previously in the journal, Morris is a long-standing advocate of mass circumcision, who now serves as the primary spokesperson for a pro-circumcision lobbying organization called the Circumcision Academy of Australia. So then it approvingly quotes the.
I can find you people that medical. Yeah, I can find you medical doctors that support or like are for vaccinations, right?
If you're not going to make claims relevant to the argument, then I suggest that you just remain quiet for a second so I can get my points out.
Do you see what like? Do you see what I'm trying to tell you right here?
What are you trying to tell me?
That of course there will all be some kind of people that are for different things, and these different things could be beneficial, and it doesn't matter. It's just that
you didn't even, just to be clear, you did not even let me get my point out. I was reading the intro that was setting up the context to the actual critique.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, yes. So then the CDC approvingly quotes the benefit to risk ratio reported by Morris and colleagues in 2014, which was interestingly, back then, it was only 100 to 1. And
yeah. I mean that's what happens. You get new evidence, and then it could either decrease the benefit to risk ratio, or it could increase the benefit to risk ratio. So I don't see anything. But go ahead, yeah.
Right. I mean, I would appreciate it if you would let me get all the points out and make a cohesive, point tying everything together before you just throw whatever pops into your head reactionarily at what I just said. Okay?
Sorry.
So the CDC in the document that Morris quotes in his first paper that you sent me, quotes another paper that Morris wrote. Back then, 2014, Morris said that the risk benefit was 100 to the benefit to risk was 100 to 1. And then ARP writes, however, this is a figure that no other scientist nor any recognized medical body to our knowledge has ever been able to reproduce. Instead, it overstates the relative magnitude of the benefits of circumcision by a factor of approximately 100, according to the recent nonpartisan analysis by the CPS. As the CPS states, the medical risk to benefit ratio of routine newborn male circumcision is closely balanced when current research is reviewed. Now, if you want to say that this was partisan and biased in some way, then I would point out a really interesting fact was when Morris was criticized by some other scientists, he wrote a response letter where he said, look, we know that the CPS is going to come out with a statement next year, and there's there are very good reasons to think that it's going to be aligned with the AAP, and the CPS is a fair, unbiased organization, so they're not going to just skew things in a biased way the way that the Australian organization has. But as it turns out, when that came out, the CPS states that the medical risk to benefit ratio of routine newborn male circumcision is closely balanced. It's something close to 1 to 1. Okay. Then ARP goes on. Given the prima facie implausibility of a 100 to 1 benefit to risk ratio in favor of circumcision, one might expect that the CDC working group would have sought out available criticisms of the paper by Morris in 2014 in order to incorporate alternative perspectives. If so, they would have come across a critique published subsequently in the same journal, which states that Morris's paper is marred by bias and that its authors did not provide a dispassionate review of the available evidence. A new population-based study from Denmark, where non-therapeutic childhood circumcision is rare, supports this. In a stable Copenhagen population with, on average, 10,000 boys born each year between 96 and 2014, only 53 boys needed a circumcision for medical reasons before age 18 years during the calendar year 2014. This indicates approximately 99.5% of Danish boys will go through infancy, childhood, and adolescence without any medical need to be circumcised.
Okay, no one is saying that. Okay, can I make a response right there? Okay.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
No one is saying that. No one is saying that it's a medical need to do those things. It's just a medical benefit to do male circumcision because you reduce the different risks of getting these diseases.
Right. Okay. So is that?
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I totally understand what you're saying. So
okay.
what you're saying here is.
And the second thing is, you cite a study from 2004, right? The study I posted you. Well, yeah, I mean 2014, right? The study that they cite for Brian J. Morris.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's the time period for my study? It's just a systemic review. 2017, exactly. Okay. I get you have a critique on the person Brian J. Morris, right? But I don't see a critique on the study from the study that I posted you. So, like,
okay,
I guess
can I go now?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, okay, if you have some independent argument as to why just including studies from more recent years is it is necessarily a virtue of a theory, then or an academic paper, then I'm glad to hear it at some point. But let me go on to criticize the more substantive stuff, which is the claims about more specific claims about the risks and more specific claims about the benefits. Okay, So if you
Sure, go
go
ahead.
to page 6 of the ARP, he talks about a problem which is scientific inference from African trials. So the main studies that the CDC and the AAP and Morris all rely on for the claims that male circumcision leads to lower risks of HIV transmission sexually.
Mm-hmm.
All of those
Mm-hmm.
claims, they are based on what's it called? They show a modest reduction in the risk of heterosexual female to male HIV transmission during the first few years after circumcision in high risk areas. There are several problems with this. I mean,
Where's that mentioned in the study again?
it's ARP page 6, and he cites the CDC's report. He also cites
Yeah, but where?
the individual studies. Page 6, scientific inference from African trials.
Oh, there. Okay, gotcha.
So those are based on studies of heterosexual males in Uganda, South Africa, and Kenya, where
Mm-hmm.
there's an extremely high rate of HIV transmission among heterosexuals, right? Now, there's no reason to
Okay.
think that these findings will apply to more developed countries like the US and like most of Europe and Canada and Australia, where
Right.
the primary routes of HIV transmission are homosexual male sex and the sharing of needles for drug use.
You really, I mean, I think you're critiquing a study that I didn't mention, right? So, do you have a critique on the study I posted?
It cites this study. It cites the CDC study that is making this invalid inference in its
Is
calculation of the HIV risk.
Yeah, but it cites the 2014 study. So
That is
it,
literally the one I'm talking about.
yeah, but okay, what did I post to you?
What?
What did I post? Which study did I post to you?
You sent me the 2017 Brian Morris.
Oh, okay. So is there a difference between 2017 and 2014?
The 2017 study is citing the 2014 CDC study.
It could still cite it, but it's still a improvement in the evidence, you know.
No, it's
The-
not. The evidence from a 2014 paper does not change when you cite the 2014 paper in 2017. This is fucking absurd.
I'm gonna ask you one more time. The table 1, right? Is there anything that is wrong in the table 1?
Gee, I wonder what they cite in table 1. Let's go find out. Give me 1 second. Table 1. Which page is table 1 on? Okay, here it is. So, HIV acquired heterosexually. Let's see what they're citing. They look to be citing citation number 90 and citation number 87. Let's go see what those are. Okay. Citation.
Okay, wait. Where are you? Are you at the HIV thing? In the table 1?
Yeah.
You do know that they cite that as a what do you call it? Original study, right? So, and they gave that study as a quality score of 2+, right?
They gave the same review study to the one where they couldn't fucking understand the difference between condoms and talking about condoms.
Okay, I just need to be sure. I just need to be sure. Is it the one with the reference with the 90? like reference 90. Are you talking about reference 90?
So
Dion, hello, you there?
yeah,
Are you talking about reference 90?
I'm not sure because there are so many different ones here. Let's see, because
I'm talking about the study that I posted you, right? Are you citing the reference 90 as a are you criticizing reference 90?
I don't know which one I'm criticizing right now because they cite so many damn studies and they don't make it clear which ones they're relying on.
Reference behind it. They literally post the reference behind.
Dude.
Listen. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you, and then you can say if it's that or not. Are you talking about the OS and the 90 reference?
Give me a sec because I mean there's a lot to look through here. Let me just show you which ones I'm.
You don't even know what
on.
reference you're talking about. Oh my god.
Let's see. CDC 2014B. Okay, so for right now, I'll concede that I don't know exactly which HIV. Yo, shut the fuck up and let me speak, dude. Shut the fuck up and let me speak. For right now, I'll concede that I don't know exactly which parts of, whether it's table 1 or whether it's other claims that they're making at other points in the article. I don't know exactly what my critique with the HIV statistics and citations are, but that's not crucial to my argument at all. I'll go on to another point, so we can just act.
Your argument. It is crucial to that because I asked you, is there anything in table 1, because that's literally where they get all their benefit to risk analysis, right? So I asked you, is there anything in table 1 that you disagree with?
And I told you already, just like you conceded,
I didn't concede.
That's an unreasonable standard to hold us to when we don't have the time to go through every single study and make sure they interpreted everything exactly correctly.
Then you don't have anything to critique. I'm sorry to say.
No, you are fucking logically illiterate if that's what you think follows from this.
Listen, I told you, if you don't have anything in table 1 to critique, right? Then you don't have anything basis on like anything to say because all the studies that are like, or the benefit to risk analysis that they get is from table 1. So if you have nothing to criticize in table 1, then you can't criticize the benefit to risk analysis.
So if they left something out, right? If they left important data out of table 1, does it follow that because it's not in there that I can't critique it? Because I don't have a problem with what's in table 1?
Well, if you can show me something flawed in table 1, right, which is where they get the benefit to risk ratio, then obviously there would be something wrong with the study, yeah, right?
Okay.
Or does it follow or does it not follow?
If I can show you if I can show you that they're missing something important.
Well, if there's something wrong in the table 1 thing.
Yeah, and what if I can show you that there's important evidence that they left out of table 1?
I mean, are you talking about some new studies?
Also, I mean, I think it's just worth reiterating. It's just worth reiterating that you have no idea what the fuck is in table 1. You just
I do,
see that they
I do.
put
I
these
see.
numbers there and these citations to it. Did you go
No,
and
I
check
see.
the papers?
I see a meta-analysis. I see a meta-analysis. I see a meta-analysis. I see a original study. I see a randomized control trial
You see
with
these words.
how
Yes,
many
those
references?
words are
One,
right
two,
there.
three, four, five.
They're
Four
right there on
references.
the table.
Four references
They're
on
right
a
there.
randomized control trial, and they actually.
Fantastic. It's good to know that you can just forget
Listen,
things that were said 10
you're
minutes
making the claim.
before.
You're making the claim. You're making claim that the study is wrong or flawed, right? Then obviously you should show it to me that it's flawed through the table 1, because that's where they get the benefit to risk ratio.
So, okay. Ratio. I have a question. Would you hold yourself to this same standard, right? Because you're saying, look, I gave you the study. If you want to object to it, then you got to show me why it's wrong. And I'm not holding you to the
Yeah.
claim. Look, you gave me the study. You
I,
have
I
to
would.
show me why it's right.
Well, the thing is that they mentioned the references, and I like that's how they you get through it. Like
Do you know
they make
anything
the.
about academia? Do you know anything about academia? Do you know that
I do.
putting an endnote, right, as a superscript and then putting a citation in MLA format or whatever the fuck doesn't mean that you actually read the paper that you're citing and that you actually understand anything that it says.
No, but we can We can look through the different. Listen, we can look through the different studies, right? And then we can see if it's true or not.
Yes, but what I'm saying is if you want to hold me to that standard, that's unfair if I can't also hold you to that standard. But the thing is we can't do that standard
No,
because we'd be here for fucking 6 weeks waiting for you to read all these things and comprehend them.
I mean, we can go through the different references. I mean, I gave you the study, and like, if you couldn't give me one reference or like one single place where it wasn't wrong, right? Then I think a lot, like, honestly, wasted my time.
I already gave you one point where it was clearly wrong, and there are other things where they cite the CDC.
No, You're criticizing CDC. You're not criticizing the study.
The study fucking cites the CDC as evidence.
But listen, they
But it's
use.
not in table 1. It's not in table 1.
Yeah, because the benefit to risk analysis, right, or like the ratio they get is from the table 1, which mentions all these studies. And like, if you see anything wrong in the or like the if you for instance see that the decreased risk they say is 90%, but the reference is, in the conclusion is totally different, then obviously the study is flawed. But you couldn't give me one single study from the table 1, basically, that's like disproves anything that they mention. So I mean,
Okay. I hear you saying this over and over and over again, and I'm praying for you that someone listening to this debate will find your critique plausible and give you that vote. Okay. I'm going to move on now, and I trust that people have heard what I said, and
sure,
the people. Okay.
sure, yeah.
Now let's talk about the claim that the risk is not severe, right? Because if the benefit to risk is 200 to 1, then clearly um the risk is not that bad.
Okay, see, you gave me this study, right? I haven't even looked through the study, but they say that the benefit is equal. I have to look at how they got to that, right? The benefit to risk is equal,
Hmm.
right? So can you show me how they got to that conclusion?
Can you show me how they got to the other one? No, you can't. all I'm putting forward, I'm not saying that they're
But they
conclusively right. I'm not saying that they're right. I'm saying that the fact that 0 other scientists have come up
study
with this result, when
do they
science is
mention?
literally based on
Study.
replicability.
Okay, what study do they give you to show you that the benefit is equal? What reference do they have?
Dude, I'm not interested in continuing this part of the conversation. We've been through this already. I want to talk about the
Because
risk of
no.
circumcision.
Wait. You mentioned a study that says, or like you say that the benefit to risk ratio is basically almost equal, right?
I never
Then I'm
said
asking,
that. I said that there's another article that makes that claim.
okay, could you give me the study for that?
It's in our messages. It's the
Oh,
last one.
okay. Give me 2 seconds.
And to be clear, I'm not saying that I endorse that result. I'm saying that what ERP showed in comparing that, which, by the way, Morris literally predicted that this I think it's the CSP or the CPS, it's a Canadian organization, medical organization, would be nonpartisan and unbiased in the statement that they came out with. Now, he was wrong about what their predictions would be. Okay. But the fact that they came out with a nonpartisan claim that, look, the risk to benefit ratio is pretty even, right? And the fact that there have been 0 other scientists who have come up with the same 200 to 1 risk benefit risk ratio, that means something, especially when science is founded on replicability.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to look through the study about the.
Okay, look through the study later because it doesn't matter, right? I like let's can we talk about the risks of circumcision?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So, um, the most cited studies on the low risk of circumcision are these 3 by Christakis and colleagues in 2000, Guy and Ansel in 1976, and Wiswell and Geschke in 1989. Okay.
Wait. 2 seconds. Where you at? And like, what chapter or like, what
So
headline?
you can go to ARP page 8, complication rates after circumcision, page 8 of the
Oh, are you
PDF.
in your study? Okay. Complication. Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
So these are the ones that the CDC, which again, your first article cites as, as the sort of gold standard here. 3 studies, these 3 studies are supposed to show low risk. But each of these studies was designed to address complications occurring no later than 1 month after neonatal circumcision. Indeed, 2 of the studies dealt exclusively with complications occurring just during the postpartum hospital stay. As others have pointed out, basing evaluations of the frequency of complications after infant circumcision on insufficiently detailed and incomplete register data will likely produce a significant underestimation of the true frequency of complications. Because, as they go on, serious or even fatal complications from postoperative bleeding or infection due to circumcision may plausibly be recorded as hemorrhage, circulatory collapse, or septicemia without mention of the surgery that caused it. Likewise, when complications are treated in other hospitals or clinics than those responsible for the original circumcision, the general inability to cross link registered data in countries without a unique personal identifier for every citizen, such as the United States, may preclude the identification of such post operative complications as being truly circumcision related. There's a whole bunch more stuff to point out, but I want to go to one of the end notes that they cite, which is end note number 6, which you can read if you get to page 12 of the PDF, where they cite their correspondence with Alexander Rata, an MD in Children's Hospital and University Hospitals of Cleveland, as well as professor and of the Department of Pediatrics at Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine. Dr. Rota describes some of the difficulties in linking circumcision-related complications with the circumcision surgery itself due to coding issues in an interview that you can watch on YouTube, where he talks about watching a child die from bleeding to death from a botched circumcision operation, and then leaving the AAP in 2012 because of the fact that they refused to change their policy in light of things like this. Now,
okay, this giving me one anecdote. Like, do you have a study that shows
I gave
that
you an anecdote? Did I give you an anecdote? Did you listen to the first like 6 sentences that I said?
I'm asking for, is the benefit to risk analysis that they give in the table 1, right? I'm going to go back to the original question. Is it wrong?
Yes, because they don't include important risks.
In what studies?
I mean, I literally just read all of the sentences out loud.
I'm still asking, like, which reference in the table 1, right, is wrong?
It's not that any of the references themselves are necessarily wrong. It's that they failed to take into account all of the relevant studies that would be needed to produce an accurate percentage.
Okay, gotcha. So you're saying that they lack basically to have more studies, or like the studies that this PDF document you gave me mentioned, or like they lack to include these studies.
They don't necessarily have to include those studies, but they have to be clear about the fact that current statistics, the way that they're set up, are inevitably going to exclude serious consequences of circumcision as complications of circumcision.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I have to look at the benefit to risk study that they give in this PDF document they gave me to see if
It's interesting how you have to look always at the sources of the papers that I cite, but you never have to look at the sources of the paper that you cite.
Well, obviously, I have to look at the references, yeah, that they give, yeah.
Right, but why didn't you apply that same standard in the first paper? Could it be possibly that the first paper supports your view?
No. I'm just holding it as a basic fact because of like the authority on it. Before I get anything
Oh
like
my God.
if I get anything like if I can that's why I asked you if you showed me some type of like what do you call it, like falsehood in it, then I would basically dismiss it. Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, I think I've done enough here. Do you have anything you want to continue with?
No, no, it's fine. I think I said everything I wanted.
Okay, so just to
I
be
mean,
clear, you're all set with closing statements?
I don't need a closing statement.
I mean, I think that the benefit to risk, if you look at the benefit to risk ratio on it, on MC, I truly believe that there's like a high, there's a high number on it, because there's basically multiple evidence to support that it's more beneficial than harm. And if you also look at the cost effectiveness for the we didn't go through that, but it's all right. But like, if you look at the cost effectiveness for like the lower income to perform these procedures, it clearly outweighs the basically the medical expenditures that they have to give out if they get one of these diseases or like harms.
Okay, all set with closing statement then? Zem?
Oh no, yeah, I think I have to look at the study that Dion produced me, or like gave to me.
But I just mean, like, is there anything that you'd like to say before we close the debate? Like, any final remarks?
No, I have nothing.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you both for debating. I really appreciate it, of course. It's good content for the server, so I'm always happy when people sign up and participate. It really means a lot. And to the audience that was here for at least 2/3 of the debate, I'm going to be posting a